The first reason an avoidant can love you, but still not truly care for you the way you need, is because their nervous system confuses emotional closeness with danger. Not danger like you're a bad person. Danger like their body believes that if they get too close, something terrible will happen: loss of control, loss of freedom, loss of identity, or the feeling of being swallowed by expectations. So even when their heart is attached, their body is bracing for impact. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you can be with someone who says they love you, who misses you when you're gone, who gets jealous when you pull back, who remembers your little details. And yet, when you're hurting, when you're crying, when you need reassurance, they become cold. Because in that moment, what you call connection, they experience as pressure. What you call repair, they experience as threat. What you call care, they experience as, I'm about to be trapped. And here's the most painful part: they often don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're protecting the relationship by shutting down, when they're actually starving it. When you come to them with a feeling, I'm scared, I felt dismissed, I need reassurance, can we talk? Your nervous system is reaching for safety. You're trying to make the bond stronger. You're not attacking them, you're asking to be held. But the avoidance system doesn't interpret it that way. Their system hears, I'm failing, I'm about to be blamed, I'm about to be controlled, I'm about to lose my space, I'm about to be required to feel something I don't know how to feel. So their defenses activate fast. They go quiet, they get logical, they change the subject, they minimize, they disappear. And to you it looks like they don't care. But inside them it's often a different story. Inside them, love is there, but it's trapped behind survival responses. They might genuinely want to comfort you, but they don't know how to stay emotionally present without feeling overwhelmed. They might want to reassure you, but reassurance feels like a promise they're afraid they can't keep. They might want to talk, but talking feels like entering a room where they'll be exposed. This is why they can be kind and warm when everything is light, but detached and cold the moment intimacy gets real. Light connection feels safe. Heavy emotion feels unsafe. And caring requires you to show up in the heavy moments. Caring requires you to stay in the room when someone's heart is open. Caring means you don't run from tears. Caring means you don't punish vulnerability with silence. But the avoidant learned something early, maybe from childhood, maybe from past relationships, maybe from repeated disappointments, that feelings lead to conflict, and conflict leads to rejection, and rejection leads to pain. So they made a vow in their nervous system. If I stay detached, I stay safe. They didn't choose that vow with logic. They chose it through experience. They chose it through survival. So when you ask for closeness, they feel alarm. And when they feel alarm, they don't move toward you. They move away. Now listen carefully, because this is where people get stuck. You start thinking, if I explain better, they'll understand. You start thinking, if I stay calmer, they won't shut down. You start thinking, if I ask in a softer way, they'll finally care. And you exhaust yourself trying to find the perfect tone that doesn't trigger their fear. But this isn't about your tone. This is about their emotional capacity. When someone's system believes closeness is danger, no amount of perfect communication will magically make them safe. They have to build emotional tolerance. They have to learn how to sit in discomfort without escaping. They have to learn that feelings are not emergencies. They have to learn that your needs are not traps. They have to learn that care is not captivity. And until they learn that, what you will experience is this love without care. Love that texts, I miss you, but disappears when you're hurting. Love that gets jealous but won't communicate. Love that wants you close but only on their terms. Love that enjoys your warmth but resents your needs. That's why you can feel emotionally neglected even while they claim love. Because love is a feeling. Care is a behavior. Care looks like, I hear you. Care looks like, I'm sorry that hurt you. Care looks like, tell me what you need. Care looks like, I'm staying here, even if this is uncomfortable. Avoidants often struggle to do that because their body is trying to escape discomfort, not build intimacy. Now here's the empowering truth for you. You don't have to villainize them, and you also don't have to shrink yourself. You can understand their wiring and still require safety. You can have compassion without becoming a volunteer in your own emotional neglect. If they love you but don't care for you in practice, the question isn't, do they have feelings? The question is, can they show up when it counts? Because your heart doesn't heal from someone's private love. Your heart heals from consistent care. And when you finally see that their shutdown is fear, not your unworthiness, you stop begging for crumbs. You stop chasing reassurance from someone who can't tolerate reassurance. You start choosing yourself. You start setting standards. You start saying, calmly and clearly, I need emotional presence, not just emotional attachment. That's the first key note. Their nervous system treats closeness like danger. And until that changes, their love may be real, but their care will stay inconsistent. The second reason an avoidant can love you, but still not care for you the way you need, is because they often love from a distance to feel safe. Their feelings can be real deep, even intense, but they keep those feelings behind glass. They want the connection, but they want it without the emotional exposure that comes with truly showing up. So they create a version of love that is private, controlled, and low risk. And from your side, that kind of love can feel like emotional starvation, because you're not asking for secret feelings. You're asking for consistent care. This is where many people get confused. They hear avoidant and think it means the person has no emotions. That's not always true. Many avoidants feel love strongly. They can miss you, crave you, dream about you, think about you constantly. They can feel jealous when you pull away. They can feel protective of you. They can even feel emotionally bonded in their own internal world. But the moment that love demands presence, accountability, or vulnerability, they retreat. They love you in a way that keeps them safe, not in a way that keeps you safe. So how does love from a distance look in real life? It looks like them being warm when you're not asking for anything. When things are light, fun, playful, they're there. When you're busy with your own life, they suddenly miss you more. When you're not emotionally demanding, they appear softer. But the moment you need something, reassurance, clarity, commitment, repair, they start fading. Because now love is no longer just a feeling. Now love requires effort, and effort makes them feel exposed. This is why avoidants often feel more loving after space than they do inside closeness. When you're away, they can romanticize you. They can idealize the relationship. They can remember the best parts without facing the hard parts. They can feel safe loving you because there's no immediate demand for intimacy. Distance makes love feel clean. Distance makes love feel controllable. Distance lets them experience the warmth of connection without the risk of being responsible for it. But inside closeness, the real relationship lives. Inside closeness, your feelings exist. Your needs exist. Your boundaries exist. Inside closeness, there are conversations, misunderstandings, repair moments, accountability. And that's where avoidants struggle. Because they don't just fear closeness, they fear what closeness requires from them emotionally. So they create a pattern where you feel loved in glimpses, but not cared for consistently. They might send sweet messages when they miss you, then disappear when you respond with openness. They might act affectionate after a break, then go cold once you're close again. They might say, I care about you, but avoid the conversations that would prove it. They might show up when it's convenient, then vanish when it's emotionally inconvenient. That's love from a distance, connection on their terms, safety for them, instability for you. And the most painful part is how convincing it can be. Because when they show love, it can feel intense. It can feel like you're finally being seen, finally being chosen, finally being valued. Their affection can feel like a reward after a long drought, and that's how people get addicted to the cycle. Not because the love is fake, but because it's inconsistent. Inconsistency creates craving. Craving creates obsession. Obsession creates tolerance for crumbs. And suddenly you're accepting less than you deserve, because you keep hoping the next warm moment will turn into stable care. Avoidants often confuse love with longing. They think missing you is the same as showing up for you. They think thinking about you is the same as supporting you. They think wanting you is the same as caring for you. But wanting is not caring. Missing is not caring. Longing is not caring. Caring is presence, consistency, and repair. This is why an avoidant can truly love you and still leave you alone in your pain. Because when you're hurting, caring means stepping into discomfort. Caring means staying present while someone is emotional. Caring means tolerating conflict and repair. Caring means giving reassurance even when it feels vulnerable. But the avoidant's nervous system often chooses distance instead. Not because they want you to suffer, but because distance keeps them regulated. And here's the key. Love from a distance can become a trap if you don't name what you need. You can't build a stable relationship with someone who only feels safe loving you when you're far away. You can't heal inside a bond where closeness triggers disappearance. You can't keep calling it love if your heart is constantly anxious. So what do? You stop negotiating your needs. You stop chasing the version of them that only exists when they miss you. You start requiring care, not just affection. You start watching what happens when you ask for consistency. You start noticing whether they can love you while close, not just love you while distant. Because the truth is, simple love that only feels safe at a distance is not a relationship. It's a pattern. And patterns don't change because you love harder. Patterns change when the person who avoids finally learns to stay. The third reason an avoidant can love you but still not care for you is because they protect their comfort before your feelings. That's the brutal truth. Not because they're heartless, but because their nervous system is wired to escape discomfort fast. When your emotions rise, their first instinct isn't, "How do I hold you?" It's, "How do I get out of this feeling?" And the quickest way out is to shut down, go cold, minimize, or disappear. So even if love exists, care fails in the moments you need it most. Care is what happens when it's inconvenient. Care is what happens when you're upset, when you're anxious, when you're hurt, when you're confused. Care is staying present through emotional friction. But an avoidant often associates emotional friction with danger. They don't experience your feelings as information, they experience them as threat. Threat to peace, threat to control, threat to their self-image. So their priority becomes self-soothing, not connection. And that can feel like emotional neglect to the person on the other side. Think about how it plays out. You bring up something calmly. When you went quiet, it hurt. You're not trying to attack. You're trying to repair. You're trying to make the relationship safer. But the avoidant hears an alarm. Their system interprets it like, "I'm being criticized. I'm failing. This is about to become emotional. I'm about to be trapped in a conversation I can't win." So they reach for comfort in the way they know best: emotional distance. They might respond with logic instead of empathy. They might change the subject. They might tell you to calm down. They might call you dramatic. They might say you're overthinking. They might get annoyed that you even brought it up. And that annoyance can be shocking because you're not asking for a performance. You're asking for basic care. But to them, basic care can feel like a demand because it requires them to tolerate discomfort. It requires them to sit with emotions they don't know how to handle. So they protect their comfort. They protect their comfort by escaping the conversation. They protect their comfort by pushing your feelings down. They protect their comfort by making you feel like your needs are the problem. They protect their comfort by avoiding accountability. This is why it can feel like they don't care. Because when you're hurting, you're not met with warmth. You're met with withdrawal. When you need reassurance, you get distance. When you need presence, you get silence. And slowly, your nervous system learns something dangerous. If I have feelings, I lose them. That's how people become anxious in avoidant relationships. Not because they're naturally anxious, but because the relationship trains them to fear their own emotions. Now, here's the part many people don't want to admit. Sometimes the avoidant does care in their own internal world. They might feel bad later. They might miss you later. They might regret their reaction later. But care that arrives later, after the damage, is not care in the moment. Care is timing. Care is how you handle someone when they're vulnerable, not how you feel about them in private. And because avoidants often prioritize comfort, they become experts at delaying. Can we talk about it later? Not right now. I'm too tired. This is not a big deal. Why are you doing this? Later becomes never, and never becomes your heartbreak. This is also where the avoidant can start depending on your emotional labor. They know you will eventually soothe yourself. They know you'll eventually calm down. They know you'll eventually forgive. They know you'll eventually try again. So they don't build the skill of caring through discomfort. They outsource the repair to you. You become the one who bridges the gap, who explains, who softens, who returns. And that is the most exhausting kind of love, loving someone who receives your warmth but resents your needs. They want your affection, but not your emotions. They want your loyalty, but not your boundaries. They want your presence, but not your vulnerability. They want the benefits of love, but not the responsibilities of care. So what happens over time? You shrink. You start editing yourself. You stop bringing things up. You stop asking for reassurance. You start numbing. You start going quiet. You start becoming easy just to keep the connection. And then you wake up one day and realize you're in a relationship where you're loved. Maybe, but you're not cared for. Your feelings are tolerated only when they're small. Your needs are accepted only when they're silent. This is why you must stop judging love by intensity and start judging it by behavior. Because love that protects comfort over your feelings will always make you feel unsafe. It will always make you feel alone in your own relationship. And no matter how much they say, "I love you," if they consistently choose their comfort over your emotional safety, the relationship will slowly drain you. You can have compassion for their wiring and still require standards. You can say, calmly, "I need emotional presence. I need repair. I need care in the moments that matter." And then you watch what they do. Because a person who truly values you will learn to hold discomfort. A person who only values comfort will keep making your feelings the price you pay to stay. The fourth reason an avoidant can love you, but still not care for you, is because accountability triggers shame, and shame triggers escape. For an avoidant, being asked to own impact doesn't just feel like, "I made a mistake." It can feel like, "I am a mistake." And when someone's nervous system experiences shame that intensely, their instinct is not to repair, it's to protect themselves from being seen. That's why you can say something simple, even gentle, "That hurt me. I felt dismissed. When you went quiet, I didn't feel safe." And instead of getting empathy, you get defensiveness. You get minimization. You get a cold tone. You get silence. You get a counterattack. Because your feelings, in that moment, aren't just your feelings to them. Your feelings become a spotlight. A spotlight that exposes the very thing they fear most. That they're not good at love, that they're failing, that they're not enough. Now imagine how brutal that is internally. They may genuinely love you. They may genuinely want to be a good partner. But they also carry a hidden belief, often from early experiences, that if they fail emotionally, they will be rejected. So when you bring up your pain, their system doesn't think, let me repair. Their system thinks, I'm about to be judged. And the moment they feel judged, their pride steps in like a bodyguard. Pride says, don't let them see weakness. Pride says, don't admit fault. Pride says, turn it around. Pride says, escape the discomfort. So instead of accountability, you get a performance of strength. They go logical. They debate your memory. They correct your language. They pick apart your tone. They focus on one detail and ignore the pain. They say, that's not what I meant, as if intention erases impact. They say, you always do this, as if your hurt is a personality flaw. They say, I can't deal with this right now, as if your feelings are an emergency they need to evacuate. This is how shame kills care. Because care would sound like, I'm sorry. I see how that hurt you. Tell me what you need. But shame makes that sentence feel dangerous. Shame makes apology feel like surrender. Shame makes validation feel like losing power. So they choose the safer route: denial, deflection, disappearance. And here's the part that twists the knife for you. You don't even need them to be perfect. You don't need a flawless partner. You just need repair. You need acknowledgement. You need emotional responsibility. But the avoidant often experiences repair as humiliation. They think apologizing makes them weak. They think owning impact makes them vulnerable. And vulnerability feels like stepping into a place where they could be rejected. So they choose the move that protects their ego, even if it destroys your trust. This is why you may notice a pattern after conflict. Instead of coming closer, they become distant. Instead of reaching out, they wait. Instead of repairing, they go quiet until the tension fades. They might even act like nothing happened. That, pretend nothing happened, behavior is classic shame avoidance. Because if they can skip the repair conversation, they don't have to face themselves. They don't have to face the mirror. They don't have to sit with the fact that their behavior affected you deeply. But you can't build love on unrepaired wounds. Unrepaired wounds don't disappear. They harden. They build resentment. They build anxiety. They make you feel like you're walking on glass, editing yourself, choosing silence to avoid being punished. And that's how an avoidant can love you. While you feel emotionally abandoned, love exists, but repair doesn't. And without repair, care is incomplete. This is also why avoidants often prefer partners who don't hold them accountable. Partners who stay easy. Partners who don't name pain. Partners who swallow feelings. Not because they want to hurt anyone, but because accountability threatens their fragile self-image. When you hold them accountable, you're not just asking for better behavior. You're challenging the identity they've built around being fine. And their system will fight to protect that identity. Now, what changes everything is when you stop begging for accountability and start requiring it as a standard. You can't argue someone into emotional maturity. You can't love someone into accountability. But you can set a boundary that makes it clear. I'm not available for a relationship where my feelings are treated like an attack. That boundary doesn't punish them. It clarifies reality. It tells them, if you want access to me, you must be able to handle impact. If they are capable of growth, they will eventually learn to tolerate shame without escaping. They'll realize shame can be transformed into humility. Humility says, I don't need to be perfect to be safe. I can own mistakes and still be loved. That's when real repair becomes possible. But if they can't face shame, then every time you bring up a wound, they'll run. And a relationship where one person runs every time the other is hurt is not love that cares, it's love that hides. Because the truth is simple: caring requires accountability. And accountability requires the courage to sit in discomfort and still stay present. Without that courage, love becomes a feeling they keep inside, while you live outside, alone, carrying the consequences. The fifth reason an avoidant can love you, but still not care for you, is because they unconsciously rely on you to carry the emotional work. They don't say it like that. They don't wake up thinking, Let my partner do all the heavy lifting. It happens through patterns, through repetition, through your empathy filling the gaps they leave behind. And before you know it, you're not just loving them, you're managing the entire relationship, its mood, its safety, its communication, its repair. You become the translator of their silence. When they go quiet, you explain it to yourself. They're overwhelmed. They need space. They didn't mean it. You become the regulator of your own anxiety. You learn to soothe yourself because they won't soothe you. You become the bridge builder after conflict. You're the one who reaches out first, softens first, apologizes first, even when you weren't the one who ruptured the bond. You become the one who makes the relationship feel okay again. And the avoidant, without even realizing it, starts depending on this. They depend on you to keep things stable, while they avoid discomfort. They depend on you to carry the emotional consequences of their distance. They depend on your empathy to reduce the pressure of accountability. Because if you always come back, always explain, always forgive, they never have to develop the skill of repair. They never have to sit in discomfort long enough to grow. Your love becomes a cushion that protects them from the full impact of their behavior. This is why super empaths often end up exhausted in these dynamics. Because you don't just feel your feelings. You feel theirs too. You sense their triggers. You anticipate their shutdown. You walk on eggshells to keep them from withdrawing. You learn which topics will make them cold, which needs will push them away, which words will start an argument. And slowly, without noticing, you become smaller. You become simpler. You become easier. You sacrifice your truth to keep the connection alive. And here's the cruel irony: the more you carry, the less they care. Not because they don't love you, but because the relationship stops requiring care from them. If you always repair, they don't have to. If you always soothe, they don't have to. If you always explain, they don't have to. Your over-functioning trains them to under-function. It becomes normal that you do the work. It becomes expected that you will be the emotionally mature one. And when something becomes expected, it stops being valued. So they can love you and still neglect you, because your empathy keeps cushioning the neglect. This is why you can be in a relationship where you feel like the therapist, the coach, the peacemaker, the strong one, while they are the one receiving love but not giving care in return. You're not just building intimacy. You're managing emotional risk for both of you. And the avoidant stays comfortable inside that arrangement because it protects them from exposure. But the cost is brutal. You start feeling alone in the relationship. You start feeling like your needs are too much. You start feeling guilty for wanting basic reassurance. You start feeling like you have to earn closeness. You start feeling like love is something you have to perform correctly to keep them from shutting down. That's not love. That's emotional labor under pressure. And when you finally crack, when you finally get tired, when you finally stop chasing, when you finally say, "I can't do this alone," the avoidant often reacts with shock, because they weren't prepared for consequences. They were prepared for your empathy. They were prepared for you to come back. They were prepared for you to soften. They were prepared for you to carry the relationship, even while they stayed emotionally guarded. That's why they can look like they don't care when you're at your lowest. Not because they're evil, because they've been relying on you to be the one who handles emotions. So when you have emotions, it destabilizes the system. It asks them to step into a role they've avoided, the one who comforts, reassures, repairs, and stays present. This is also why they can be affectionate when things are easy, but absent when things are hard. Easy love requires no emotional work. Hard love requires responsibility. And in a dynamic where you've been doing the work, responsibility feels foreign to them. So how do you break it? You stop rewarding under-functioning. You stop doing emotional labor that should be shared. You stop translating their silence into meaning. You stop chasing the version of them that only shows up when it's convenient. You start naming standards clearly, without anger, without begging. I need consistency. I need repair. I need emotional presence. I won't carry this alone. Then you watch what they do. A person who truly values you will feel the pressure and rise. They will learn the skill. They will show up. They will practice care. They will repair even when uncomfortable. They will stop outsourcing your emotional safety to you. But a person who only loves the benefits of you will resist. They will call your needs too much. They will disappear. They will wait for you to soften again. Because they don't want partnership, they want a cushion. And that's the truth. Love is not just feeling attached to someone. Love is taking responsibility for the impact you have on them. And if they keep relying on you to carry the emotional work, you may be loved, but you won't be cared for in the way your heart actually needs. The sixth reason an avoidant can love you, but still not care for you, is the hardest one to accept. Because it forces a choice. Love without care becomes emotional neglect, and you cannot heal inside a bond that keeps injuring you. This is where everything stops being about understanding them and starts being about honoring yourself. Because at some point, it doesn't matter how much love they feel in private, if your lived experience is anxiety, confusion, and being left alone with your emotions. This keynote is about the difference between attachment and love. An avoidant can be attached to you. They can miss you. They can crave you when you're gone. They can think about you at night. They can even feel jealous and possessive. But attachment is not care. Attachment can exist without responsibility. Attachment can want you close for comfort, while still failing to protect your heart. Care is what creates safety. Care is what shows up consistently. Care is what repairs damage instead of pretending it didn't happen. And here is the painful truth. If someone repeatedly makes you feel alone, dismissed, minimized, or punished for having feelings, that is not a communication issue. That is a safety issue. Your nervous system learns through experience. If every time you express a need, they withdraw, your body starts bracing for abandonment. If every time you cry, they get cold, your body starts shutting down to survive. If every time you ask for clarity, they go vague, your body starts obsessing because uncertainty is stressful. You begin walking on eggshells. You begin editing yourself. You begin choosing silence over honesty because honesty costs you connection. That is how emotional neglect forms, slowly, quietly, through repeated moments where your inner world is treated like a problem. And yes, they may love you. Yes, they may have trauma. Yes, they may be scared. Yes, they may not know how. All of that can be true. But your pain is still real. Your needs are still valid. And your heart is not a rehabilitation center. When love exists without care, you start turning into someone you don't recognize. You become hyper, aware of tone, timing, mood. You overthink texts. You rehearse conversations. You wait for the right moment to bring up something that shouldn't require perfect conditions. You start believing you must earn kindness. You start accepting crumbs as if they are a meal. And the worst part is this: you start doubting your own feelings. You start asking yourself, am I too much? When the truth is you're finally reacting to being consistently unmet. This is where self-respect becomes the medicine. Because the solution is not, love them harder. Loving harder doesn't teach someone to care. Loving harder often teaches them they can keep the same behavior and still keep you. The solution is standards. Standards are not threats. Standards are clarity. Standards are the boundary between your heart and someone else's immaturity. A standard sounds like, I need emotional presence. A standard sounds like, I need repair after conflict, not silence. A standard sounds like, I need consistency, not hot and cold. A standard sounds like, my feelings will not be treated like an inconvenience. And then the most important part, you don't argue your standard. You don't beg for it. You don't negotiate it down until it becomes nothing. You state it calmly, and you watch what they do. Because if they truly care, they won't punish your needs. They will learn, they will try. They will show up consistently over time. They will seek growth. They will build emotional tolerance. They will stop making your feelings the cost of staying connected to them. They will stop turning every hard conversation into a shutdown. They will make your nervous system feel safer, not more anxious. But if they don't care, they will resist your standard. They will label it pressure. They will call you needy. They will say you're holding on to the past. They will disappear until you soften. They will keep offering affection without responsibility. And that will tell you everything you need to know. They love how you make them feel. But they don't love you in a way that protects you. This keynote is where the super empath becomes dangerous in the best way. Not dangerous as in cruel. Dangerous as in no longer available for emotional neglect. Dangerous as in you finally understand that love is not proven by longing. Love is proven by care. Care is consistency. Care is presence. Care is accountability. Care is staying when it's uncomfortable. Not leaving when you need them most. And when you finally internalize that, you stop getting hypnotized by words. You stop confusing chemistry with character. You stop confusing missing you with choosing you. You stop confusing, they love me, with, they are safe for me. Because a person can love you, and still not be capable of caring for you. And your job is not to wait until they become capable, at the expense of your mental health. Your job is to choose the kind of love that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to keep it alive.